Hi, my name is Pam Colby, and I'm the writer-director of Fertile Ashes. And I want to give you a little bit of the background of the film. I met Caroline Gilbert about 4 years ago, and at that time she was in her mid-70s and was telling me about her experiences of running an underground lesbian bar in the late 60s and early 70s, and what they had to go through just with the neighbors, the police, and even the mafia to keep the bar open. And she told me very casually that the bar had burned down, and when I pressed her on it, it turned out that it had been burned down deliberately, and that they were forced to move the bar then and restart it, or not forced, they did persevere and move on and open another bar. But it almost seemed like that it was something she didn't really want to talk about still, that it was burned down. And I think part of that was just that it was a secret. It was an illegal bar in some respects, or especially in the world that Caroline was from. All of the women involved had to be closeted with their families, or not really part of their families anymore, if not. And so just the whole story of that era seemed really sad in some ways to me. But when Caroline was telling it, she had so much joy and so much fun in her voice, and it was a good thing. They were young and they were changing the world. It was the early 70s. And I thought, this is a way to tell the story, to recreate it and let other people learn about what their lives were like through a film. I began planning to make the short film in the Twin Cities, and was able to shoot actually at the house where Caroline and her then partner, whose name was Honey, lived. One of the things that Caroline found in the basement at her house was this that actually hung in the bar, that was the bar after Honey's barn, which was the bar that burned down. There's really not a lot of people still who lived through that era who are around to tell the story. So I was very happy to have Caroline here and observing as we shot the bar scenes. And she told me, more pretzels on the table. We always had lots of pretzels on the table. The thing I really wanted to make sure was included in Fertile Ashes was that moment in time where the old school butch femme world of underground, maybe you're married to a man, but you're also part of this bar culture and in a relationship there. And you have all these code names and everything is underground, and the last thing you want to do is bring attention to yourself. And then along in the 70s come this new generation of women who want to be out, who want to be visible, who want to tell the world that they're there. And the clash that happens, and that's part of the story of Fertile Ashes, is that moment in time when the old school and the new feminists meet each other, and in our situation get very close. We often look to Stonewall as a period when things really shook up, and this is certainly an echo of Stonewall happening. But I also have noticed in our community there's a lot of feelings about that era because it was such a heavy alcohol and cigarette smoking and everything else, survival period of abuse. And I think that's true, that there was a lot of reasons that people were medicating themselves pretty heavily back then. And I wanted to include that in the story too, that it wasn't the era of recovery, but it was a step towards the era of recovery, and part of that was just visibility. And even if the organizing wasn't seen as organizing in the way that we later did claim it, I think that the gathering is organizing. And so that was what the bar was, and I'm sure that's why it was burned down. Well, I think the reason this project is so important is because it is lost history, her story. We also need and owe a thank you to the people who have opened doors for us. So that's why this is an important film.